Hello students, I cordially welcome you all back to this concluding session. Before letting ourselves to continue the rest part of our fable titled The Gentleman of the Jungle, let's make an attempt to recollect the things that were dealt with in our previous session. Students, when it comes to give a verdict to a man who seeks an impartial judgment, be it an animal or a man, justice should always be given in an impartial way. But in contrast to this, in the case of the man who was found to be the protagonist of the short story, the Gentleman of the Jungle was treated in an unfair way. The plight or the condition that the man was in is similar to the condition of all the Africans who were under the clutches of the Europeans. Let's see what happened in our previous session. Considering our previous class, what did we get to see is that the day came to the man who sought an impartial judgment from the members of Commission of Inquiry to get his act back. Everything was set. All the members of Commission of Inquiry who were appointed by the elephant and other ministers of the forest made their way towards the place where they could sit on. After sitting, they summoned Mr. Elephant first before them instead of calling the man. Why they did so is that they were all the representatives of Mr. Elephant. After being called, the elephant came all along the way with an attitude, and he brushed his tusks using the sapling, which means a young plant which was given by his wife, Mrs. Elephant. The tendency of brushing his tusks shows us the fact that the elephant wanted to brush away the case that existed in between the man and himself. After approaching the Commission of Inquiry, the elephant addressed all the members of Commission of Inquiry, telling them that, Gentlemen of the Jungle, there is no need to waste your valuable time in relating to a story which you already got to know. So, there is no need to tell it again before all of you. It was already known to you. And he further told them that he considered it as his duty to protect the wishes and the interest of his friends. This tendency of the elephant led to the misunderstanding between the man and himself, he opined. And the man invited the elephant to save his act being blown away from the hurricane. When the hurricane blew in the forest, the man came to the elephant to request him to save his act being blown away from the hurricane. This is what he provided or narrated a false story before all the members of the Commission of Inquiry, and later told them that as the hurricane gained an entry towards an unoccupied or an empty space, that was a scene in the midst of the earth, that was a scene inside of the earth, the elephant made his way towards an unoccupied space to fill it, or we can say to occupy it, so that it couldn't be blown away from the hurricane. That is how he saved his hut. This is how he saved or rescued the man's hut. And later he considered this is a necessary thing to do, that in his own friend's interest to turn the undeveloped space into a more economical use by sitting in it. And he told them further that if the members were in the position of him, they would have performed the same thing with equal readiness. This is what the elephant narrated a false story before all the members of Commission of Inquiry, only to make them believe. And on hearing the story, on hearing this concluding story of Mr. Elephant, the members of Commission of Inquiry summoned Mr. Hyena and other elders of the forest to give their opinion in terms of the dispute that existed between the man and the elephant. All the seniors or elders who came there after being invited by the members of Commission of Inquiry gave their opinion, and all of them supported what Mr. Elephant had said so far before the Commission of Inquiry. Later, the Commission of Inquiry summoned the man finally. After being called, the man started giving his own account of the dispute on his own way, what he had witnessed with his naked eyes. But when he started saying before the Commission of Inquiry, they interrupted the man to say further. They cut him short, which means they stopped him saying further and saying that, "My good man, please restrict yourself to a relevant story," which means you put a boundary around you to tell a relevant stories only. We have already got to know, we have already heard the circumstances or situations from variable or from various available sources, and they were all the unbiased sources, which means from the impartial sources we have collected the information from all the available sources. And we would like to tell you whether your hut's undeveloped space in your hut was occupied by anyone else before Mr. Elephant assuming his place. Students, this was a place where I stopped teaching you people in our previous session. Let's make a continuation from here on, that starts from the second paragraph in the page number 5. The man began to say no, but after being asked a question by the members of Commission of Inquiry, that is, whether the undeveloped space in your hut was occupied by anyone else before Mr. Elephant came inside your hut to save it. When he was asked this question, he answered them telling that no, there was none to save my hut. No creature came inside to occupy the unoccupied space in my hut. That's what he said before the members of Commission of Inquiry, saying no only. But he continued saying before the Commission of Inquiry in using but. The word that is used by the man But says is all about, he continues saying further before the members of Commission of Inquiry. But again, the Commission of Inquiry interrupted him in saying further. But at this point, the Commission declared that they had heard sufficient evidence from both the sides. So far, the Commission of Inquiry have got to know and they have heard the evidence from both the sides. They have the sufficient evidence from both the sides. They have already witnessed, they have already got to know that sufficient evidence from both the sides. This is what the Commission wanted to declare here over here, after having known the issues that existed between the man and the elephant. The issues were already known to the members of Commission of Inquiry. That is what they said here. They received the enough evidence from both the sides, from both the parties, and retired to consider their decision. And now they wanted to be free from their gathering, and they wanted to put the conclusion to this matter so that they consider their decision. They wanted to tell their decision over here, as they would like to put an end to this matter, so that they wanted to give a conclusion to this issue, to this dispute that existed between the man and the elephant. After enjoying a delicious meal at the expense of the Right Honorable Mr. Elephant, here, with his own expense, the Right Honorable Mr. Elephant organized a buffet, which means what we call a delicious meal was arranged by Mr. Elephant with his own expense, only to entertain them. Here, delicious meal was provided by Mr. Elephant only to favor him in terms of this case, in terms of the dispute. That's why Mr. Elephant wanted to favor him in terms of this issue. He provided a delicious meal to all the members of the Commission of Inquiry. And the members of the Commission of Inquiry enjoyed a lot after eating such a delicious meal, which was provided by Mr. Elephant. And finally, they reached their verdict. Finally, ultimately, after having a delicious meal, the members of Commission of Inquiry, they came to a conclusion. They came to a final judgment over here. That's what we call the verdict, judgment. They reached their final verdict after having a delicious meal. Called the man. After they wanted to come to a conclusion, they wanted to put an end to this matter, they called the man to give their verdict. They called the man before the members of Commission of Inquiry and declared as follows. Ultimately, after having a delicious meal, the Commission of Inquiry wanted to put an end to this matter and declared as follows. In the following ways, in the following lines, it is seen how they declared. In our opinion, this dispute has arisen through a regrettable misunderstanding. Even the members of Commission of Inquiry have trusted too much Mr. Elephant, as they completely believed him, and moreover, they have consumed a delicious meal which was given by Mr. Elephant. So all of them were usually in the favor of the elephant. In their opinion, this dispute that existed in between the man and the elephant has arisen through a regrettable misunderstanding due to the backwardness of your ideas. Now, all the members of Commission of Inquiry put all the blames over the man. It is because of your backwardness of ideas. You are lacking enough ideas in you. That's why, in our opinion, it is of their opinion that the dispute that has arisen in between the man and the elephant through a regrettable, that's what we call regrettable, which means too bad, misunderstanding. There was a misunderstanding between you and the elephant due to the backwardness of your ideas. This is how they put all the blame on the man. Backwardness of your ideas. We consider that Mr. Elephant has fulfilled his sacred duty of protecting your interests. Already, we all have got to know that Mr. Elephant has fulfilled his sacred duty. He considered that earlier as his duty to protect the wishes and interests of his friends. So, already he has done his job by protecting the interests of you. He has fulfilled his sacred duty of protecting your interests. Your interest is only to save your hut being blown away from the hurricane. Already the elephant had done a good job in protecting your hut and as your interest as well. As it is clearly for your good that the space should be put to its most economic use, and as you yourself have not yet reached the stage of expansion which would enable you to fill it, we considered it necessary to arrange a compromise to suit both the parties. Here, again, further they opine that it is clearly for your good. It is shown, it is for your goodness. Everything was done by Mr. Elephant only for your goodness, as he considered it as his duty to protect the interests and wishes of his friends. As you were one of the friends of him, he has done a good job. And it is already clearly seen, for your goodness only he has done all those things. And the space should be put to its most economic use to prevent the earth being blown away from the hurricane. The unoccupied or an empty space should be put in an economic use so that we could prevent the hut being blown away from the hurricane. We can stop the hut being blown away from the hurricane. So, the space, the unoccupied space, should be made to put with its most economic use by occupying it, or we can say further that by sitting in it. And as you yourself have not yet reached the stage of expansion, now they further opined that you yourself haven't reached the stage of expansion. The man, as compared to the elephant, he is as not big as the elephant, so that he hasn't reached the stage of expansion. He has set himself in a only place to take the shelter from after building his own hut. He hasn't gone anywhere else. Instead, he built his hut in a particular place in the forest. He stuck himself in one place in the forest. So he hasn't gone anywhere else in the forest. There is much space available in the forest. so that he hasn't gone anywhere else, he hasn't reached the stage of expansion, and which would enable you to fill it. And if he goes to the extension into the forest, he can fill the space that is available in the forest. He can go anywhere in the forest that he wishes to go, that he wishes to live his life in. We consider it necessary to arrange a compromise to suit both the parties. Now, they opined that all of them, they considered it necessary to make an arrangement. That's what we call to make a compromise, or we can say that an agreement should be made. It is of their opinion that an agreement needs to be made in between the two parties, which can be more suitable. That's why they considered it necessary to make an agreement to suit both the parties. Mr. Elephant shall continue his occupation of your heart. They keep saying that Mr. Elephant shall continue to live his life in your heart only. He would continue, he continues his occupation in your heart only. From now on, Mr. Elephant will never go anywhere. He will be here, he will be at your own heart. He will be at your heart. He shall continue his occupation in your heart. But we give you a permission to look for a site where you can build another heart. But the Commission of Inquiry gives the man a permission to look for a site where he can build another hut. Now all the members of Commission of Inquiry provide the man an empty site where he can build another hut to take a shelter more suited to your needs. Since beginning, all these members of the Commission of Inquiry tended to say the same statement, which suit your needs, and we will see that you are all well protected. If you build another hut in an empty site where you will be provided an empty site, you can build another hut there. You will be well protected. This is what all the members of Commission of Inquiry tended to say before the man. You will be well protected in the hut if you build another hut in an empty site, which will be provided by the members of Commission of Inquiry. The man having no alternative. Now the man, he had neither an animal or a man from his side to rescue him from this troubled situation. The man having no alternative, he has no substitution, which means he has no substitute to rescue him from the position where he caught himself in a troubled condition. The man having no substitution and fearing that his refusal might expose him to the teeth and claws of the members of the commission, did as they suggested. Fearing that now the man was scared, and he feels that if he refuses to obey the orders of the Commission of Inquiry, he might be under the teeth and claws of the members of Commission of Inquiry. He might be a puppet. He might be a food for all the members of the Commission of Inquiry. He would be killed by all the members of commission of inquiry if he refuses to obey the order or command or decision of the members of commission of inquiry. With the fear of this, the man did as suggested. The man built another hut as it was suggested by the members of commission of inquiry. But no sooner had he built another hut than Mr. Rhinoceros charged in. The man took no time to build another hut over here. Soon after, the man built another hut where he was given an empty site to build his hut. Another hut than Mr. Rhinoceros charged in. Mr. Rhinoceros came directly inside the hut where the man built his second hut. The first hut was occupied by Mr. Elephant. The second was occupied by Mr. Rhinoceros after having seen the new hut, the second hut which was built by the man in a space where he was given an empty site to build a hut. With his horn lowered and harder, man took wait. After coming inside the hut, after occupying the man's second hut, Mr. Rhinoceros ordered or commanded the man to quit, which means Mr. Rhinoceros ordered him to go away from the hut. Now he occupied the second hut of the man. This is how Mr. Rhinoceros also took the hold of the man's hut. Again, the Royal Commission was again appointed to look into the matter. Again, the Noble Commission of Inquiry was appointed to look into this matter. After acquiring the man's hut by Mr. Rhinoceros, again the Royal Commission of Inquiry, as we have seen it before, when the man's first hut was occupied by Mr. Elephant, again the same thing happened over here. That is, the Royal Commission of Inquiry was again appointed to go thoroughly into this matter that existed now between Mr. Rhinoceros and the man now. And the same finding was given. There was no difference at all. There was no distinction at all in between the finding, or we can say the decision. The same decision was given by the members of Commission of Inquiry even after forming a Royal Commission. The same finding was given. This procedure was repeated until Mr. Buffalo, Mr. Leopard, Mr. Hyena and rest were all accommodated with new arts. Again, the same procedure, or we can say the same process was repeated again and again by the man. He was given an empty site by the Commission of Inquiry to build another hut, and again he built another hut. This is what is repeated by the man. This procedure, the process of building a new hut, was repeated by the man. This procedure was repeated by Mr. Buffalo, Mr. Leopard and Mr. Hyena, and all of the rest of the animals were all accommodated with the new huts. The man kept building new huts. One after another, the man built huts to take the shelter. But the same thing that happened in the forest, all the animals were accommodated. What was followed is that after Mr. Rhinoceros occupying the second hut of the man, what happened in the forest is that the man built the hut one after another. Later, the process of acquiring the new huts of the man was repeated by Mr. Buffalo. Later, Mr. Buffalo occupied the man's hut, and later it was the turn of Mr. Leopard, and After that, Mr. Haina took the charge of him to acquire or occupy the man's hut. This is how what follows next in the forest, and rest were all accommodated with the new huts. All the rest members or rest animals were all accommodated. They were all provided an accommodation or shelter, we can say, with the new huts which were built by the man in the forest. Then the man decided that he must adopt an effective method of protection. And finally, the man had left no hope in him. He had lost all the hopes in him. He found himself in a position to find an effective method to protect himself from being destroyed, from all the animals. So, the man decided that he must follow an effective method. He must find himself an effective approach to protect himself. Since the commission of inquiry didn't seem to be of any use to him, he discovered himself the fact that the commission of inquiry didn't appear to be no use of him. It is of no use if he continues relying upon the commission of inquiry. There is no use at all. The members of commission of inquiry would give no justice to him. So there is no need to rely upon the commission of inquiry. This is what the man went on thinking about this matter. He sat down and said, he thought over this matter, and he sat down in a place and said to himself like this, using one of the Nigerian or Kenyan language. He said this line over here, which literally means, in a literal sense, what does it mean is that there is nothing that treads on the earth that cannot be trapped, which means trapped in a sense, taken hold. Any living organism, or we can say the thing that walks, that's what we call walk, or in a sense treads. Anything that walks on this earth that cannot always be taken hold, taken control by anything else. Only we can fool someone else only a time, all the time. We cannot trap all the people in all the times. So, the thing that walks on this earth cannot always be taken control, taken hold of. Or in other words, we can say that you can fool people for a time only. We can put the people in a troubled situation only a time. We can fool them only in a time, but not always. But not forever. But not always. People cannot be trapped in our tactics. That's what he says over here. One very fine early morning, what happens in the forest is that when the huts already occupied by the jungle lords were all beginning to decay, one very early fine morning, what happened is that when the huts already occupied by the jungle lords, already we got to know in our previous paragraph the fact that all the huts which were built by the man after being given an empty sites by the commission of inquiry, all the new huts were occupied by the jungle lords. He left no hut in the jungle kingdom. He had no hut to live his life in. All of them were completely occupied by the jungle lords. One after another, the rest of the animals penetrated themselves into the hut of the man, which was built by the man himself to get the shelter from. The huts were already occupied by the jungle lords, all beginning to decay. Now, all the huts which were built by the man and which were occupied by the jungle lords beginning to decay. Now they were all going to decay, or that's what we call destroy. They were all going to be destroyed. And now it was the turn of all the members of Commission of Inquiry who took their participation in destroying all the earths in occupying all the earths of the man. It was their turn to be spoiled on this very early morning and fall to pieces. All the earths of the man which were occupied by the jungle lords were put down in a position to fall into many pieces. He went out and built a bigger and better hut a little distance away. The man now put himself in a position to build another hut. That is, he went out to a distant, in a little distance from the place where he built all of his huts. He made his way towards the place where he walked a little distance away from the place where he built so many huts which were occupied by all the animals of the forest. And later he built a bigger and better, he built a bigger and stronger hut a very little distance away. A stronger and bigger hut was built by the man in a little distance away from the place where he built all of his huts. No sooner had Mr. Rhinoceros seen it than he came rushing in, only to find that Mr. Elephant was already inside, sound asleep. And later, taking no time, Mr. Rhinoceros had seen the new hut of the man who built a bigger and stronger hut a little distance away from the place where he built all the huts which were occupied by the jungle lords. It was a scene by Mr. Rhinoceros. Taking no time at all, he rushed towards the bigger hut, the stronger hut, wanted to see whether the elephant was inside. Wanted to see this, Mr. Rhinoceros took himself into the bigger and better hut. Now, he observed that Mr. Elephant was inside and was asleep. He slept all alone, lying himself in the hut, which was bigger and stronger hut. Mr. Leopard next came in at the window. Now it was the leopard's turn to take himself inside the man's bigger and better hut. Now Mr. Leopard came inside the man's new hut. He came inside and he took himself at the window. And later, Mr. Leopard was followed by Mr. Elephant. Being the king of the jungle, he was too partial towards the man. And as I told you people earlier, all these animals were they were all in the favor of Mr. Elephant earlier, but now all of them, they took themselves in the new huts of the man as he built one after another. Later, after it was the turn of the lion to take himself inside the man's bigger and better hut. Later, who followed next is that Mr. Fox. He took himself inside the hut. And later, Mr. Buffalo also entered the doors. Mr. Buffalo, he came inside and he stood at the doors while Mr. Hyena howled for a place in the shade. Now Mr. Hyena, he cried very loudly, making a lot of noise. As he came inside, he was making a lot of noise. That's what we call howling. Mr. Hyena was howling or crying or what we call or shouting for his place to take the protection, to get himself inside this hut, inside this bigger and better hut. And Mr. Alligator basked on the roof. Mr. Alligator, or we can say the crocodile, Mr. Crocodile was lying on the roof. He laid himself on the roof. Presently, they all began disputing about the rights of penetration, and from disputing they came to fighting, and while they were all embroiled together, the man set the hut on fire. And now, all began disputing about the rights of penetration. All the animals, as they got themselves inside the bigger and better hut which was built by the man, all the animals who were inside the hut, they started disputing each other in terms of occupying it, in terms of penetrating, which means in terms of it is penetrating in the sense it is an act of occupying the hut, and it is an act of entering, that I come first, you follow later, he comes lately. This is how each animal keeps disputing each other, having quarreled among themselves in terms of penetrating, and this dispute later turns into fight, and from disputing they came to fighting. All the jungle lords, from their disputing, all of them turned themselves into fighting. This dispute which took place which took place among all the animals now turned into fighting. And while they were all embroiled together, and all the animals indulged in fighting each other in terms of their penetration. The man set the hut on the fire. Now the man took advantage of this situation when all the members of the Commission of Inquiry and all the animals, when they were inside the hut, taking themselves on the fighting each other, the man took advantage of this situation and he set the hut on fire. When the man set the hut on the fire, all the animals were burnt into many pieces, were burnt into many ashes, and burnt it to the ground. Even the bigger and better hut was also burnt into ashes, all along with all the animals of the forest. All of them were burnt into ashes. And jungle lords and all were inside the man's bigger and better hut. Then he went home saying, and finally the man, when he made his way towards his home, he said like this: peace is costly, but it's worth the expense, and lived happily ever after. Having seen this statement, we can come to know the fact that peace is so costly. We can't invest the money on par with the peace. Here, students, we need to understand one thing. The peace that the man desires for in the forest, the peace the man wishes to get in the forest is equal with his property. If he gets his hut from the hands of, from the control of the members of Commission of Inquiry, he would get a peace. In the similar way, the Africans also, their peace lies in their wealth, which is acquired by the European. That is why peace is not equal with anything. It is a very expensive one. It is a very costly one. We can't invest anything on par with this piece. That's how piece becomes very costly, and its worth, its value is the expense one. We can't invest anything with this piece. That's what it says us all about. And lived happily ever after. After making his way towards his home, the man lived his life very comfortably from there on. This is what we see in the present context of the story of the gentleman of the jungle. Students, I thank you all for listening to me all through the way. Thank you.